Listen here, you succulent turd. This video presents a short summary of my best guess for what the true nature of this lovely realm of ours is. The big picture behind all conspiracy theories. We might think of this as an answer to the question asked in Crispin Glover's film, What Is It? Keep in mind I'll be skipping over a lot for the sake of brevity and prudence. I'm also omitting discussion of all the positivity and light that shines through for now, to focus here on the more scandalous aspects. Alright, so where the heck are we? What is it?
What is it? What is it? What is it? What is it?
In an image, this. Okay, let me break this down. We are lured into chasing things which are not good for us, which powers a sophisticated device of some kind, which lures you even further until you are devolved beyond a point of no return. The more you grope at polished turds and stray from self-management, the more it reaches back and manages you, which doesn't position you favorably in the long term. And of course we might wonder what occurs beyond this point of no return. That I don't know, but perhaps you are harvested in some sense, eaten, used as a battery, used to animate sex robots or high-tech voodoo dolls. Something no bueno, I suspect. You lose your autonomy, basically, and then can be used in any number of ways. Who knows, alien John Elway might just stuff you into a football and hurl you into the mouth of a Garthok to the roar of bloodthirsty fans. Now, a 1 or 2 sentence summary can't do much justice to a situation so rich and complicated, so I'm going to list out a few different ways of saying the same thing, more or less. I'll expound on each in a moment.
What is it?
A stable fixed point of throttled progress. A context hijack. A dynamic illusion. An unsolvable puzzle. A jester's prank. An automated long-term dumbing down of human consciousness. An experiment. A theme park, and maybe a spiritual school. I should point out that despite the lighthearted tone of this video, I'm 100% serious about the information we're discussing. So let's first consider the idea of a stable fixed point of throttled progress and perception.
What does that even mean? Thanks.
We may well find ourselves in a contrived environment of artificially manufactured primitivity. A farm, more or less, which maintains humanity at a level roughly halfway between amoeba and God. Our situation here on Earth is quite similar to the communities in The Village and The Giver and Dark City and The Island, with a contained bubble of tameness and sanitized dysfunction surrounded by who knows what else on the outside. On the outside. On the outside. outside. Okay, well, that was fun and a lot of work. Let's go ahead and find our spot and pick up where we left off.
Shut your pasty fuckhole. More. On the outside.
There you have it, folks. That. Okay, let's find our spot and carry on. We were discussing how, let's see, a contained bubble of tameness and sanitized dysfunction, surrounded by who knows what else on the outside. A reality bubble. Okay. A reality bubble with severe and often ludicrous limitations imposed on it. A silly Flintstone world passed off as a natural occurrence or just the way things are. We, the inhabitants, think we have arrived here through some organic processes like cosmic collisions and evolution. But really, we are observing these processes play out under the umbrella of a consciously designed prison, or ant farm, or containment bubble for experimentation, or hamster wheel battery, or spiritual school, or whatever this place is. Yes, consciously designed, but expertly crafted to mimic the randomness and chance which are characteristic of unconscious design. The mainstream plans for civilization, which are generated by some management algorithm, offer only illusions, false hope, and cheap prizes. Thriving, true progress, and greater freedom are dangled in front of us like a cat toy, but ultimately prevented. The societal improvements we observe throughout history are managed and even seeded in a controlled release fashion. Innovations in science, technology, infrastructure, architecture, art, and other domains are only ever a small step up coupled with some lateral sidestepping. So there is an internal redirect maneuver which yields progress at first, but eventually dresses it up and contorts it and shuffles it in such a way as to continuously wrap back around to the status quo, or worse. Would-be progress is slowly bastardized and warped in baby steps and micro changes, dispersed over a long time scale, such that we don't even notice or suspect any foul play. We just think that's how things naturally unfold. And it's all masked by layers and layers of plausible deniability and covering of tracks. A big bad computer continually turns us into muck while making it seem like progress. Kind of like a software update which improves the cosmetics but degrades the software, and then addresses the software but adds some new bugs. Or perhaps a bit like a cement mixer, where civilization's apparent motion forward is really just approaching the wall, which tosses it back again. We are stuck churning in long cycles of build-up and tear-down within a carefully controlled range, in a contained environment. Man, why though? Who would create such a sick contraption? Well, it's ultimately a means to create a stable, perpetual winner's circle of privileged insiders. A portion of human civilization is continually maintained as the have-nots in order to sustain the lifestyle of the haves, who may or may not even reside on Earth. There can be no royalty and prestige without peons and squalor. This whole system is resistant to perturbation and highly adaptive. We could think of it like a governor on a car engine, but instead of using one straightforward way of limiting the engine speed, it uses a multitude of insanely clever methods to keep us moving toward shifty mirages. Alternatively, you might prefer the analogy of whack-a-mole, whereby the collective human consciousness is beaten back down whenever it gets too high. If you stop to consider it, a universe where you can't heal instantly and manifest your wildest desires at no expense to yourself or anyone else can only be the product of neglect, sloppy programming, or a villainous effort to keep the universe in a chokehold. What is it? A context hijack, or reference point hijack. Our sense of context seems to have been hijacked with the ultimate aim of keeping us ensnared in a disempowered niche. The key reference points which we use to build our internal model of reality have been smudged and distorted, leaving us to flounder about in dimly lit awareness and stub our dicks on pine cones. We understand ourselves and our environment by way of relationship. Our interpretations and belief systems are built on core concepts and archetypes, such as reality, the world, nature, men, women, creator, etc. Our best understanding of these concepts, coupled with our direct experience, enables us to navigate. What I'm telling you is, the fundamental concepts have been obscured, hidden away, and/or dumbed down. They've been replaced by imposter concepts, which are only conditionally true at best. So the inherently and unconditionally valid has been usurped by the merely conditionally valid. Let's look at a few examples to illustrate what I mean here. Reality replaced by the world or the physical universe. Your city, the world, and the physical universe provide a sense of boundary. Rather than thinking in terms of the boundaries of reality itself, we are channeled into thinking in terms of the boundaries of these specific local environments. nature replaced by physical and biological nature. Predation, evolution, gravity, and weather are not necessarily inherent to reality. They probably don't need to occur under other conditions. We just take them as a given because we are used to them. Conscious experience replaced by life. We view life as something which begins and ends. Birth, growth, decay, death. But these may again just be something which happens here in the Earth environment. Real life, somewhere out there, isn't born and doesn't decay. It's just enduring conscious experience, rich with variety. Universal orientation replaced by local orientation. World maps, coordinate systems, and calendars regulate our sense of up and down, forwards and backwards. We reference our position based on these traditions rather than based off of fundamental concepts and where we lie in relation to them. Holistic science replaced by piecemeal science. Our current version of science focuses on reality as observed in local environments instead of how it inherently is. This results in fractionated and fuzzy understanding. For example, math is not clearly linked to philosophy, although the two are deeply intertwined, and arguably one and the same. I apologize for not going into deeper explanations on each of these. I'm sure you are thinking of many good counterexamples. I'm just trying to keep this video to a reasonable length. Let's talk about wisdom. I'm sure at some point you've heard some popular wisdom or truism or spiritual tenet and thought, but actually that's not necessarily true because, well, you were right. For example, money doesn't grow on trees. But really, any type of tree can be designed, and it can grow staplers if we program its DNA right. And that brings up another example. Who says an organism has to be programmed by DNA? There are many paradigms for encoding and growing an organism, DNA being only one of them. Another example, having the wisdom to change what you can and let go of trying to change what you can't. But, heavy caveat, most things are changeable. You can't control the weather, for instance. Yeah, you can. Are you telling me if we put some of our best minds in a room together to figure out a way to create a storm or stop one in its tracks, they couldn't figure out a way? Are you telling me we couldn't turn the world into a fully functioning dodecahedron? Of course we could. These examples may seem trivial, but the idea is, if you run through pretty much every single piece of advice or wise saying or your favorite quotes, you'll see that they can be debunked on closer inspection. They are only true in limited contexts. Put another way, the collective set of shared beliefs among humans has been doped in a very strategic way. Most or much of what we believe may be true, but 10% say is false. And even among our true beliefs, our perception has been throttled by omissions in our education, such that we inhabit a lower level of understanding. We should be filling our heads first with concepts which rank high in fundamentality, not memorizing specific dates and formulas and street names. Okay, let me summarize this section so far. Our phenomenological horizons are intercepted and smeared and scrambled. A game of whack-a-mole and shifting staircases is played with our teleological inquiries. We are corralled into lateral modes of thinking rather than vertical. Culture hijacks our in terms of. We understand concepts in terms of how we estimate them to relate to other concepts. So the nodes of highest leverage in this network of understanding are tweaked out and or replaced or managed somehow. Thus, we base our lives too heavily on convention and not enough on timeless principles. And relating back to the notion of a stable state of manufactured primitivity, our sense of past and future seems to have been particularly hijacked and managed. We get fed a phony past, Egypt, etc., and a phony future, which falsely triangulates us and leaves us misled about where we stand. Anti-gravity, for example, is branded and marginalized as a future technology rather than something currently pursued with vigor and resources. Instead, we get our heads filled with rockets and images of utterly absurd and impractical drone aircraft. Hollywood is another great example of a reference hijack. An alarmingly large portion of our psyche is built on how we relate to the characters and stories relayed to us in movies and TV. Even the Hollywood sign itself tells us what it is doing to our brains. And we triangulate our collective identity heavily based on the caveman narrative and evolution. Suffice it to say, evolution can be allowed to unfold naturally, but the process can also be cleverly doped and or seeded. And then architecturally, our goofy present is contextualized off an even goofier past. Modern styles are often a mere quotation of historical styles rather than truly innovative and original. We might think of the architecture we are immersed in every day as guide rails which bound our perception and box us into cookie-cutter narratives and life plans. To round out this section, let's just say we reside in a contrived and constrained solid physical domain where we understand not a whole lot, instead of a freer domain where we can manifest our desires at will and understand much. What is it? A dynamic illusion. It's a big deception machine which scrambles our souls and sense of direction. A dynamic illusion whereby our attempts to understand reality are anticipated, intercepted, spun around, and scrambled. A reality based on phony pretenses aimed at reversing your soul vector. This dynamic illusion process uses a myriad of clever confusion tactics. Some include a network of linguistic tricks, including double meanings, misnomers, and false branding. Internal redirects. Pulling the rug out from under us while feeding us a new, slightly modified and rigged portion of rug, like a reality treadmill. Small imperceptible changes and tweaks, slips and slurs, and distortions and flubs.
Darrison.
Mixing aesthetics to make a hodgepodge, an intricate weave of things that do not combine coherently but almost seem to, which induces a kind of dissonance in the beholder. This shows up in narratives involving magic, space opera, Egypt, etc. Mystique is what you get when you mismatch attributes in odd ways so as to be alluring. A very advanced smokescreen protocol, layers of security, which scramble and eschew responsibility and culpability. When you try to figure out who done it, the identity of the culprit is shielded by wily and powerful tricks and scapegoats so that you never find out. Phantom frontiers. Receding or evaporating horizons. Something piques your interest, so you investigate, only to find out there's nothing there to find except another wild goose chase. Like a mirage which turns into another mirage when you get closer, ad infinitum. Bastardizing the primary archetypes through which we understand everything. Reality, the world, nature, etc., as we discussed earlier. Instead of exiting back to our spiritual home, we are misled into running up the down escalator, if you will. The goal is to achieve total internal reflection to keep us in a disadvantageous position, like hamsters on a wheel who forgot how to get off. And not only that, it is aimed at degrading us to a level where we are no longer aware enough to architect our own trajectory. It marches us into a devolved future state where our continued participation can then be totally automated. What is it? An unsolvable puzzle. An endless labyrinth of dead-end mysteries, dummy symbols, distractions, and decoys to chase. This may be the Jester's prank, or part of it at least. It's rigged with booby traps, distractions, and silly things to identify with or waste your time on. I don't know about you, but I've sure stepped in shit once or twice and made plenty of wrong turns. That's what this place does. It baits you into making wrong turns. You may have noticed that the spiral pervades an alarming amount of culture, including ancient symbols and company logos. That's not random. It is a representation of the actual spiral of confusion we find ourselves in, the whirlwind of dynamic illusion.
Got the cyclone ringtone on the phone.
What if the all-seeing eye, an owl, and symbology on the dollar bill are not so much the fingerprint of secret societies, but more so just a distraction to chase. The shh finger symbol, the covered eye. Are these dummy puzzle pieces that signify nothing at all? Part of an unsolvable puzzle? They hint at an underlying meaning, but there may not actually be one, and therein lies the trap, and the genius of it. These may all be like fishing lures for attention, which yield nothing once grasped. I've spoken quite a bit on my channel about architectural anomalies. The architecture is only part of the unsolvable puzzle, just one component. Some other examples include codes which encode nothing, or ironic messages. Dummy symbols which symbolize nothing. Weaponized narratives. Storytelling can be used to induce certain behaviors and beliefs. Anchoring. Consider this glass paperweight pyramid which appears in many movies. Is it there to cause confusion and anchor your brain to random shit, more or less? It's a vast network of dead-end mysteries, a clown show tangle of non-resolving mysteries to chase. All this distraction, bewilderment, and identification with false pursuits and personas results in disempowerment for you and me. Incidentally, the tactics actually describe themselves in their manifestation. Gravity anomaly tourist attractions are about warped perception, and warping perception is one tactic. Shifting staircases and impossible staircases hint about how our efforts to move towards freedom are managed along rigged and shifting paths. Maze symbols tell us we're in a maze of some kind. The uneven letters of the Hollywood sign tell us that Hollywood scrambles our brains. There's a very pun-like aspect to it, comical almost, certainly ironic, and self-referential. Take another look at these codes. This Google Earth Easter egg, some waveforms near the North Pole, most likely contains no meaningful data. As such, it communicates that the road to true north is paved with meaningless gibberish. In the movie Minority Report, this barcode gets a brief emphasis. But I spent a lot of time trying to decipher any data contained in the barcode, and eventually concluded that it is not a real barcode, just a dummy barcode. As such, it embodies the notion of a codeless code, a dead-end mystery. This cryptic cicada message that got some attention on an internet forum does the same. Just an alluring wild goose chase, which amounts to no valuable or coherent interpretation. These aforementioned codes you could dive into and try to decipher, but they are ironic in that the only real data they encode is "I'm a code," or something of equivalent uselessness and irony.
Getting closer now. The tension was terrible. What was it? The fate of the planet may hang in the balance. Almost there. My fingers flew. My mind was a steel trap. Every pore vibrated. It was almost clear. Yes, 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 yes.
Be sure to drink your Ovaltine. Ovaltine? A crummy commercial? Son of a bitch.
What is it? A Jester's prank. Someone's idea of a practical joke which tricks us into using our own energy against ourselves. A variety of clever and perhaps nefarious methods are used to coax us into acting in a self-defeating manner. Garbling, scrambling, confusion, and discombobulation tactics seem to be at play. The news, the newspaper, movies, fiction, art, every nook and cranny of pop culture is saturated with this management protocol. It's herky-jerky, derpy, and rather nonsensical. And at least in part, it seems to all be unfolding according to some absurd script, like a very cheesy screenplay. What is it? An automated, long-term dumbing down of human consciousness. This is readily observed in the architectural inversion over time. One parameter is cranked to 11 in the past, massive scale and stoneworking, certain aesthetics, etc., with other parameters lagging, and then as we move forward in time, those parameters braid and reverse. Not just one parameter, and not totally linear. That would be too obvious. More like inching us along with plenty of hiccups and noise to give it sufficient realism and disguise it as an organic process. This relates back to the context hijack notion. Our history has been warped and inverted or turned upside down, leaving us deceived about our place in the universe. Sorry, but man doesn't build massive stone structures and absurd statues out of superstition or boredom, or a still developing psyche. That's not how it works. Our buddy COVID-19 is in on this too. Another great example of something used to dumb us down or fatten up our souls for slaughter, so to speak. It's a chess move which aims to nudge us in the direction of accepting pure nonsense as the norm. Small behavioral changes are introduced and accepted, which set the stage for even greater manipulation to creep in later. A compliance ladder where micro concessions add up over time, amounting to macro concessions. You may have noticed that mainstream media, including TV and movies and radio, seems a little, lackluster. This is likely related to a conscious effort to keep humanity's collective consciousness below a threshold level. Consider this passage from an allegedly leaked document called Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. Keep the public entertainment below a 6th grade level. An automated program may be orchestrating governmental changes, building fires, architectural trends, etc., in non-linear and counterintuitive ways. Again, it's not necessarily unfolding according to a set schedule, but rather it's very dynamic and adaptive, and adjusts according to how we respond. It may not be strictly economic and technological reasons that cause your iPhone 6 to go obsolete after only a few years. That may result from a concerted effort to constrain usage and inch us along in a controlled fashion.
Once your brains are reduced to a cottage cheese like mush, we'll scoop them out with a melon bowler and gobble them right on up.
What is it? an experiment. Quite possibly, it's an ongoing experiment to see how things play out when certain knobs are turned. Perhaps just to satisfy someone's curiosity. Relating back to the notion of a jester's prank, this place may be a shock scam or a shock test experiment. Everything from Scientology to the all-seeing eye and all the symbolism and rumor may just be a big soup of deliberate distractions to shock us into reaction and motion, so that certain correlations and conclusions can be drawn and quantified.
Make it move!
Move!
What is it? A theme park. I'm willing to bet that certain patrons jump into human bodies and play strange games, much like the show Westworld, a place hidden from God where the freaks come out to play. The big mess called Earth is created and managed, and then the well-to-dos pop in various ways to enjoy a position of privilege or have a certain adventure. Think SimCity or Age of Empires. Like the show Westworld, it's a fake environment of artificially manufactured, unexplored territory and scenarios, like a cross between make-believe and Slummin' It. What is it? A spiritual school. Let's add in another one here, just to briefly mention the possibility that all the planned adversity we face may be part of an even higher level plan to teach us tough lessons which will eventually allow us to attain a more divine state of being. Like one hell of a labyrinth or mousetrap that won't let you out until you are pure enough. You may have to conquer your lower nature and knee-jerk reactivity in all domains of human character before you can make it out. It may seem like I just threw out a bunch of bullet points and guesses as to what it is, hoping that some of it will be accurate. And yeah, I kind of did. I don't know that I can do any better at this juncture. So to try to tie all this up into a somewhat digestible summary, what is it? Where are we? It's a clever management system which uses every deception and confusion and psychological warfare technique you can imagine, weaponized against the human race, to coax us into spending our time and energy poorly, so that we can serve as some source of entertainment or power or tasty morsel for whoever is behind it. Maybe. At this point, I'd like to revisit the metaphor of the treadmill carrot on a stick thingy. I may have given the impression that our unfortunate situation is mostly your fault and my own fault, since we are the ones chasing after the shiny cookie. But I want to cut us some slack. First of all, it may not be a carrot out in front that you're chasing, but a stick that someone's poking you with from behind, by no fault of your own. And it's likely that we're up against AIs with ridiculous computing power, which can read our own minds and bodies better than we can, and then draws insanely astute correlations across insanely large datasets to prescribe you the perfect temptations and poisons and distractions. So if you prefer, instead of a devolution treadmill, think of it like two different walkways you can travel down, that you carry with you under your feet at all times. One path is designed for you by the AI and looks more generic and sterile and soulless, and the other is your own path, organic and vibrant and awesome, uniquely you and in harmony with the whole. You can switch between these tracks at any time, albeit with some effort. That's the good news. Okay, who, how, why, when, etc. How is it done? The how is too rich and complicated to get into in this video. Any number of possibilities, really, taking us to weird speculations about hive mind entities, replicants, AIs jacked into our subconscious controlling a percentage of our thoughts and behaviors, symbolism, inception technology, fractal multidimensional puppetry, dream structuring, people-powered reality generators, behavioral jamming technology, behavioral induction, world line manipulation and automation, and even non-humans and angels and demons. Also friggin' time travel, parallel action in alternate universes, and dark overlord wizards, and potential quintuple agent white wizards who are pretending to be bad. X-Files shit, basically. Or every sci-fi and fantasy movie plot combined into one story. Suffice it to say, how? Via very sophisticated deception and manipulation methods. Who's behind it all? An AI? God? Lizards? Dark wizards? White wizards? Some random dude?
Go!
A multi-dimensional squirrel who ate too many mushrooms? Honestly, I really don't know. And why? Possibly to teach us a lesson. Maybe to get us to take a stand and counter the program by cultivating and asserting our autonomy and goodness, or something to that effect. Or maybe even as a practical joke of some kind, or to harvest our energy in some way. And again, also possibly just to maintain a perpetual dynamic of winners and losers. It's not quite clear at this juncture. Okay, maybe not, maybe so, but what good does it even do us to know all this? Doesn't this just make us more anxious than necessary? Very good question. I don't have the answer. It's so morbid, right? Aren't we better off not knowing? Well, I can tell you one thing. It's not nearly as morbid as the stench that fills the room after I've eaten 2 pounds of dried figs in one sitting. And what can we do about it? That's not clear either, but my intuition says our fate is not sealed, we're not totally screwed, and that's final. We can do much on a daily basis to raise our awareness and intelligence and connect with our heart-centered instinct and flex our willpower and autonomy. So let's just keep learning, cracking jokes, and watering or nurturing the more divine aspects of our nature. And I have reason to believe that some Helpy Helperton parties are on their way. Who knows, they may be bounding over right now as we speak. Credit and shout out to any and all folks who may have fought to make this information available. Note that I didn't touch on why I suspect all this or where I'm getting my info. Where's the evidence? This is all my opinion, just based on circumstantial evidence and direct observation. over a decade or more. Obviously, I encourage skepticism. I know this is all very confusing and it raises so many questions. I just hope that this video has moved us one small step in the direction of clarity and ultimately some closure eventually. By the way, can we go back and appreciate how much fun this egg is having right now? Alright, I'm off to go suck a fart. Stay succulent and watch my outro. Hopefully you win some quarters. Smiley face, K bye.